I think we already have attendees joining in. So let's do this. All right. So, everyone, thank you for joining and welcome to the latest episode of Real Innovators, where we bring AI forward B2B marketing leaders to share their practical tips and wisdom on how to drive real impact and achieve business objectives with AI. My name is Sharad. I'm the founder CEO of Vidoso and your host and moderator for the session. So a little bit about Vidoso. Vidoso is an agentic AI platform that helps marketers grow both brand and demand with agents that can repurpose and generate hyper-personalized multimodal campaign assets, including video clips, short form and long form content, and help marketers activate every audience type in every vertical and ICP segment. Our mission is to make AI accessible to every marketer and replace cold start prompts with intuitive workflows and help CMOs run AI as a system with repeatable playbooks and measurable results. And today I'm thrilled to have my panelist, Jennifer from Udemy. Jennifer is the CMO of Udemy, Sylvia, CMO of Kanji, and Amit, CMO of Zykus, to break down how they are thinking about AI, what they are using AI for, and how they are measuring ROI from AI investments. So Jennifer, Sylvia, and Amit, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to
Thank
be
you,
here.
Sharad.
Thank you.
So maybe let's get started with this, which is, what is AI to you? So I would love your perspective on how you think about AI broadly. What does AI mean to you? And AI, is AI more than just ChatGPT and Claude? Is it just ChatGPT and Claude? Is it just prompts? Is it more than that? What is AI to you? Sylvia, do you want to start?
Sure. What comes to mind for me is I heard recently that prompt engineering should be renamed as context engineering. And I thought that was so powerful because if you put any, prompt or question or problem you're trying to solve into an LLM with zero context, you're not going to get a very good result back. You're going to get the average of the internet. And so I think what AI means to me is this ability to really bring all of your data together and provide, context to a tool that can do a lot with that hub of information. Similar to almost how like a human brain, like every experience that you have in your life, from how you grew up to how you might have moved around the world like I did, to the jobs that you've had, will shape your worldview on the decisions you make and the creative spark that you have. I think AI is similar, where it can, it's as powerful as the context you give it, and it can provide a worldview based on that context that can be creative, that can be operational. So I think it can go many different ways, but I think the power begins with the context that you give it.
Wonderful. I really love this idea of, hey, a prompt will give you the average of the internet versus, the deep intuitive context and organizational tribal context will, result in much more, much more better outputs. Jennifer, your thoughts on this? What is AI to you?
Yeah, I love the I read similar things recently on the context engineering versus the prompt engineering. I was like, oh man, that's the new thing. So I mean, listen, to me, I think like for many, AI is my buddy, right? It's my thinking pal. It's where I go to have initial sparks of ideas. So I think, AI, I think of it as, my creative co-pilot. I think of it as a way to be a multiplier for me and my team. And I think of it as a way to just quickly digest, the vast amounts of information that are out there. And I think, to your other point, I think AI is more than just ChatGPT and Claude. I think it's also forcing us to rethink processes, team structure, flows. And I think that's an exciting, albeit sometimes daunting, opportunity.
Amit, your thoughts on what is AI to you?
I think both Jennifer and Sylvia made very great points that I could relate to. But the way I look at it is, in the pre-AI world, knowledge was power. right? So somebody who knew a lot, was an expert, was powerful. But in the Gen AI world, I think curiosity is the differentiator, right? Because uh, back then we needed to know all the answers. Okay, today all we need to know is the right questions, and the ones who are able to ask the right questions get the best outcome out of AI. So for me, AI is both an equalizer and a great differentiator in this sense.
Yeah, wonderful. I think, just to connect some dots here, AI being the thinking pal, right, to, be the mirror and be the thought partner and help us explore various aspects that we may not have just originally thought of, right, which can only be operationalized if there's curiosity, if you actually operationalize curiosity. And then if you do that, then it can level the playing field, as you said. Um, Awesome. Like this is great. Like prompt engineering to context engineering using AI for just re-engineering processes and not just like ChatGPT prompting here and there. So let's go into this, right? Which is um, if AI is more than just ChatGPT and Claude, as Jennifer said, what are the top use cases that you are trying AI for today in your marketing teams?
You
I
want to prompt us? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go
I was
on.
going to say I can start. So I mean, yeah, I think there's the obvious ones like design, campaign landing page, copy, whether that's in the form of copy and using AI to make sure that you're getting the right SEO for that copy, using the AI to get the ideation. But then I think there's also, for example, a use case that I used in my team is when it was time to look at our OKRs, we created an AI assistant that had all of the OKRs and literally had a 17-20 page document that had the context of where the OKRs had come from, so that as the team were going through and readjusting their key results and readjusting some of their initiatives, they could go back and they could query the assistant, have a conversation with the assistant, and they could also see the different prompts that others were asking as well. So I think it's not just about the output of marketing, it's also about how you run your marketing organization as well, I think would be a good use case.
Sylvia?
Yeah. Maybe I could add to that. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me, and this, I think there's a common thread between all of our use cases. There's a long list I can get into of use cases, but I think it generally falls into two buckets. There's the knowing the buyer really well, and a lot of research, a lot of this could be something like analyzing sales call transcripts. I did an exercise last week where we analyzed a lot of sales call transcripts, but we specifically prompted to ask for inferred emotions, because the prospect isn't always going to give you like, I'm feeling anxious about this problem, right? But the LLMs did actually an amazing job of really capturing those inferred emotions. Like they said this thing which suggests that this is how they're feeling about this problem. And so that was a really interesting layer on top of, it would take hours to actually go through all those sales calls transcripts, being able to extract that kind of emotional angle, not just from what was said, but from what was inferred. So a whole research bucket is a huge category. We have a lot of use cases there. I would say the other category is execution. Copywriting, of course, is a huge use case here, but specifically execution of things that are very repeatable. And so we have, for example, a demo day event that we do every month or so, where our SEs do a pretty technical in-depth demo of a certain part of the product. It's surprisingly popular. People love it. And there's that's an incredibly templated, repeatable. There's emails we send out, there's a landing page we make, et cetera. We take the transcript from that demo day and then we prompt it for other topics we could write about around that thing, or what questions did people ask most often, et cetera. So I'd say, yeah, those are the two categories. Is kind of like the research and knowing the buyer really well. I think that ties in a lot to the context engineering, topic we were talking about earlier. And then the execution of workflows, specifically the ones that are highly repeatable, I think are the easiest use cases to kind of tackle first.
I really love this. The first use case that you said, and that's been one of the most successful use cases for me as well, Sylvia, where we continuously review the call transcripts, both real time, to spot if there was a missed opportunity or a blind spot that our account executive missed, or if there's a great opportunity that should surface, bubble up to the leadership. But we also do it as a batch process, right, where we put 300 odd transcripts together and see if there are any patterns emerging or any outliers and so on and so forth. And the kind of insights it throws up is mind blowing. I put together a content piece after reviewing these calls, and I call it, we didn't make this shit up, right? This is real, coming directly from the customers and prospects, and it's mind blowing, the kind of things that you can pick up. But coming back, Sharat, to your question, I have a simple framework, a 2 by 2 of sorts, where one, I look at the level of expertise that you require, and second is, I think, like Jennifer mentioned, the repeatability, or I think Sylvia, you mentioned, right, how often do you do it? And if something is highly repeatable with low expertise, you just go ahead and automate it, and you put a workflow around it so that it kind of churns itself continuously. And there are areas where expertise is high but you don't do it as often. That basically means you need to rely on a highly skilled person. Now I would like to create a knowledge base, a rag out of it, so that I can codify the expertise within my AI model, and the dependency on a very scarce resource therefore comes down. And then there are other use cases where we do it very rarely. Maybe, let's say, I'm thinking of a brand refresh, right, and I need ideas and I need taglines and so on and so forth. I use a co-pilot kind of a scenario there, right, where I'm using it as a buddy to bounce off ideas and to refine my text and so on and so forth. So this is the kind of matrix we use to see how to prioritize use cases which go for automation or agentic flow, and which are the ones that you want to create a rag model around. The other thing is, of course, from idea to outcome, you could use AI anywhere, right? Like, and for analytics and so on and so forth. So we try to uh, visualize a case where the org structure of my team is human plus AI, and what are the aspects that I could get AI to do, and which are the aspects that I need my human members to work on. And we're trying to work backwards, right? Not all of it is possible right now. There are some areas which are better than the others, but we have an end destination in mind. Maybe a year down the line, things will be far better, and a lot more of it can be done through AI.
So the two broad areas are, one is sort of ideation, research, and even just context sharing with just internally as part of the marketing team, right? So Jennifer, as you said, hey, if you were to, throw all the OKRs with all the context and then let everyone sort of query off that, then you have a lot of shared context and a shared baseline. And then the other part is just understanding buyers at scale through call transcript analysis and so forth. The question I have is, how do you make that repeatable? So I think understanding buyers and understanding market segments and audiences is a key thing. Um, how have you thought of sort of making that repeatable on a cadence where the fresh calls are analyzed, and then there's not only just a shared understanding of, let's say, buyer emotions, but actual like work streams and output and content and campaigns coming out of that?
Maybe I can take this, right, because this is one of the most hardened use case in my organization. Normally, that call transcript APIs are now available, right? So we pull those call transcript APIs, we push it on a low code, no code platform where we have created a series of tests that the LLM model kind of analyzes it, and like I think Sylvia mentioned, the nuances that typically you don't ask for, right? So we have a rubric that we have created which evaluates the calls on both the customers or the prospects thought process and their need and their triggers and so on and so forth, as also on our reps responses to that, right? Was he or she able to represent the organization well, understand the problem, and give a right solution? So based on this, I think it's fairly accurate. Sure, that we were really surprised initially. We created a system where humans would go and in a sense back check whether the rating that is coming out of the workflow is accurate. And then what we also do is we send a Slack message or a Teams message to the AE that, hey, this is the analysis, and this is the rating of the opportunity slash your performance, and these are the areas that you could have done well. And we also send that a similar message to the manager, right, that, hey, these are all the calls that happened today, and these are the highlights and lowlights, right, where you need to channelize your energy. Actually, it's working quite well for us.
So yeah, I think just to, sometimes I'm asking a little bit of a so what question, right? So obviously the ability to understand buyers makes a lot of sense, right? By sales teams, by marketing teams. Obviously it makes sense. The question is, how do you do that repeatably? And even if you do that repeatably, well, what is the next step after that? What happens as a result of improved understanding of your buyers in a way that actually drives like marketing metrics? So just and in general, just curious about that, which is how are you thinking about see all of this, right? Whether you've created a GPT with shared understanding for people to ask questions versus repeatable playbooks. Like for example, in the world of MarTech, in marketing automation, you set up workflows and nurture, which is repeatable, and then once you create it, it runs. What is the equivalent of that in AI that you might have implemented or experienced?
Yeah, I think the main use case for us is we have a tool called copy.ai that you can build those workflows where you kind of start stringing the automations together. Because I think what you're getting at is, yes, it's powerful to get that insight or automate a process, but how do you start stringing these mini automations together into like a master flow that really takes things to the next level? And we're still building a lot around this, but I think the biggest use case is using copy.ai. Things like we do a podcast recording, for example, we have the transcript from that recording. This kicks off a series of workflows, right? It can help write a ton of copy to then redistribute that content and the topics that were discussed. So there's a whole execution workflow that spans many different channels. That's great. We also have a step in that workflow that actually mines that transcript for other content ideas. And then that is where the human kind of comes back into the loop. So it can say, hey, these 5 topics were discussed that are really interesting to pull threads on in future content. And then our human in the loop will look at those 5 threads and say, which of these do we want to pull on? And so I think in any of these master automated workflows, you're going to have to, this will be a new skill we'll all develop, is determining what is the right place to insert the human in the loop in that master workflow so that we're really keeping the human touch and tying it back into what matters to us at this moment, what feels resonant, on that day or in that week or based on what's happening in the world, et cetera. And I think an important part is having a centralized knowledge base. If you're building these master workflows, having a knowledge base that's very robust and all in one place versus having to build sort of these mini knowledge bases in different tools. And, like Amit mentioned, using APIs is a way to sort of construct this yourself. Or of course, there's tools out there that can help. But I think that is a key part of those workflows, or else, again, you're going to miss the context needed to be able to automate, more things without having to have a human in the loop at every single step.
Jennifer, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that Amit and Sylvia have said is 100% spot on. I think the other thing you've got to think about is honestly nothing to do with AI or technology. It's the human element, right? I think that the so what, how you turn this into something is you have to change habits in your organization. So one of the things I saw with my team and I see with customers we work with is honestly where we've just tried to roll out whether it's a new workflow or a new tool. In some ways it's failed a little bit, right? Because people aren't stopping and thinking, okay, how do I now do something differently? How do I do my process differently? How do I incorporate this AI in? How do I use those insights in a different way? So if you take something like a competitive analysis, which is great, right? A use of AI that you've now got this data on a regular basis and it's being posted, completely agree on the point about the central knowledge database. How do you now think differently about how you share that competitive intel with the teams, right? As Amit said, you're sending them a Slack. Okay, great, you're sending them a Slack, and now what do they do, right? So you have to now rethink their process too. and are you incorporating it into their new daily life, so that they can receive the information as well. So I think it's also thinking about the cross functional partnerships that come with this, because you can do a lot of things in marketing, but then if you're not aligning it with your sales team, your product team, etc., you're only going to get limited value from it. So I think, yeah, it's also thinking about the non-tech bits. It's as much a key to success as the tech bits.
I totally agree. And I think just to layer on that, one thing we've done that's worked so well for the human part of all of this is we do these AI hackathons, and we've done a handful of them. And we did one early on when all of us were very early in learning AI. And it was like we all put our heads together and we had zero like playbook. We just picked a problem to solve. And we were like, how can we solve this problem? And everyone in the room had different bits and pieces of AI knowledge that allowed us to build something really incredible. And then we all got this dopamine hit of like walking out of the room being like, we built something that works and is incredible. But the real power of the hackathon was actually like the days and weeks after, where there were people coming to me like, I have this other idea of how we can now use AI for this new thing. Or I have an idea of something we're not even doing at all. Because I think sometimes, there's this dance between the people and the tools where you have real problems to solve, but then you also, new ideas and new territory to cover is like sparked by using the tool, where something opens up that you wouldn't even thought was possible before. And so I think getting everyone in a room, even in a very unstructured way, and trying to solve one problem can help spark all these solutions to solve either different problems or just to open up entirely new opportunities together.
I
So I
think that's
think
brilliant, Sylvia. So, sorry, Shari, if I may. We did something similar, and now every quarter, every 3 months, we run a AI workshop of sorts, right? And what we also did beginning of this year is we said, hey, not everything that we try in AI is going to be successful, but at the same time, you want to provide people the freedom and the security to try something and knock themselves out. So we created a small budget, Sharad, which is just for experimentation, almost like a VC fund, right? So lots of ideas come up from across the team, and I encourage all of them, and I give them some dollars, right? And I say, hey, try this out for a couple of months. If you're able to, to Jennifer's point, orchestrate it within the organization and make it a part of the way of life, it's a successful use case, and I'll fund all of it. And if you're not able to build traction, if you're not able to bring change management, and even though it's a brilliant piece of artifact that you create, but if the adoption rate is going to be low, then we'll just kill that project. So we're trying to think like angel investors or VC funds within. And because see, you can always do a lot of stuff, but suddenly you see that the costs are significantly increasing, right? So all the productivity gains and all the brilliance is coming at a certain cost, and these are not cheap when you start aggregating it. So how do you ensure that the best projects get the funding and they also get you ROI, while at the same time you don't restrict innovation just because of lack of funds?
I think we're still talking a lot about the AI enablement of the organization, right? So the cross-functional AI enablement, uh, cross-pollinating ideas, creating funds to, drive experimentation and context sharing, and all of that is good, right? Um, and AI today is cheap. Like if an average AI deployment was $100,000, we would be actually talking a lot more about the ROI and the impact, right? So CMOs at the end of the day are measured on brand, demand, pipeline, and revenue. So the question is, how do we get to the impact part? And I'm curious, how are you thinking about the impact, not just the soft kind, but actually the hard kind of impact? If you had to spend $250,000 on AI, how would you measure the impact from AI? What metric would you look at, both on the performance side as well as on the productivity side?
Yeah, I think one of the
Maybe I.
go on, Amit, go ahead.
All right. So I see. For me, the metrics of success don't change, Sharad, because the fundamentals of business don't change, right? Whether you're using AI or you're using brilliant people behind the scene, you need to build brand and you need to build demand, which converts into revenue. If I'm able to do it in a better or a smarter way, that's where AI comes in for me. Uh, the second thing is, with the same amount of talent pool or the same amount of marketing dollars, am I able to increase the amount of pipe that is coming down my funnel, right? So we use the same metrics, and we see if AI is able to bring that delta or a lift that you would like. Some of it is very immediate, right? So if you use AI for, let's say, outbound calling, or if you use AI for call analytics, and if you're able to spot even two opportunities that would have missed your eyes and ears in a non-AI world, that's a direct ROI for me, right? And we keep a track of this. So we have created certain lead indicators to see if AI is actually making a dent here, but the lag indicators for me still remain, the core fundamentals of business.
Jennifer, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same point that Amit mentioned. I mean, your metrics are the same, but it's about, in some cases, like volume, right? How much more can you do as a result of AI, right? So, for example, can we cut a time limit down, a time down to do something? So, for example, did this piece of AI generated content get us to a campaign launch 2 weeks faster? Did an AI enhanced visual drive more scroll depth or clicks or less? So I think it's about also redefining or tweaking some of those metrics around engagement, speed to delivery, and often, pipeline is the end goal, if you will. And I think sometimes it is about looking at the inputs that make that pipeline possible. So what is AI powering behind the scenes? Is it allowing you to get to a minimum viable product that you're proud of faster? And does that allow you to drive more campaigns, more events? Like, for example, we started using AI with some of our blog content. We were able to triple the amount of blogs that we were putting out there, right? Now, how do we measure the success of those blogs? Are we increasing share of voice? If we've got a call to action that turns into a transaction or a demo, are those clicks going up and the MQLs going up and the pipeline going up? But yeah, so I think it's as much about thinking what AI is powering behind the scenes and the building blocks of the campaigns that you're then delivering in the end.
I have a bit of a different perspective on this, which is, I don't know if there's a metric that's easy to measure, but if I could invent one, it would be like quality, like creativity. Because if you think about a marketing team that's putting out content that is just, there's a spark to it, like there's a creativity and it's memorable, and it lands with the audience because you know them so well, and it's personalized because you have the resources now to personalize more of the experience, et cetera. I think there's almost like a quality element as well, in addition to some of these other metrics that have been measured, that I'm very interested in. And I don't measure it today, right? There's no like quality of how, good was this copy, or how good was this ad, or how good was this idea. But I do think that shouldn't be forgotten in how we're approaching this too, because I think if you only use AI to just automate the same stuff, you're not going to get a better result because everyone else is doing the same thing, and then it's going to be really noisy. I think there's an element of spark and creativity and quality that I think, again, requires the human in the loops in the right places, but you can get an uplift there as well, just in the memorability of something.
Yeah, I think there is. I think what is durable and secular and what will never change is the core marketing KPIs and metrics, which is pipeline and brand and demand. I think what is unique about AI is that it allows us to expand our capacity as a team and to be able to drive more campaigns, more content uh, per unit of cost. So that's a unique thing about the world of AI, which is it has brought productivity into the equation. Like in the world of sales productivity was always a key metric because sales is a very headcount driven function, and so it's very expensive. But in the world of marketing, again, historically it's always been about impact, and impact is still important. But now you have the productivity and capacity part, which is a unique thing that in a lot of marketing organizations, you have content and creative, which becomes the bottleneck for demand gen, for integrated marketing, right? And now you can actually expand the capacity of that team, with AI. But I also like, what Sylvia is actually mentioning, which is about quality and differentiation, because now everyone has access to some kind of AI tooling, and so the output is going to go, so output alone might not be sufficient. And so I think we should define quality, right? How AI can actually impact quality. And Sylvia, you mentioned personalization. We live and breathe personalization in the world of video. So, which is, how do you expand, how do you help marketing teams expand into every single micro audience type with right messaging, right content, with right personalization? I'm curious from the panel, how have you thought about AI driving quality? What are some other examples, other things that you might have tried, and in general thoughts on AI driving quality?
My thought on this is I would measure it as how much is your marketing an inside joke to your audience. And that could come from personalization. It could come from knowing the buyer really well. It could come from, having a spark of humor. It could come from, using a term that that they'll really, really understand, that will land. But yeah, how much does it feel like an inside joke to them, where it's like, oh, these people get me. And I think there's many paths to that, but that's always something we're hoping for, is that when our buyer sees something, they're going to be like, wow, these people really understand me. And it feels like it's an inside joke between you and them.
Mhm.
Very nice. So for me, see, AI also has a flip side because everybody is equipped with pretty much the same tools, right? It's an equalizer, and there's an attention deficit and there's a content overload that's happening. So for me, the first moment of truth is the scroll stopping. When you're scrolling up or down, left or right, will you give me a second glance? Will you wait for 2 seconds more to see what I've written, right? That's my first moment of truth. That's the wrapper. Can I build something which is interesting enough, different enough, wacky enough just to get that second glance, right? After that, my second moment of truth is when they consume my content, whether it's a webinar or an ebook or that inside joke Sylvia mentioned about. But that only comes after they stop scrolling, or after, everybody's inboxes are full, nobody's taking calls, social media is overloaded. So for me, AI should help me beat this first test and the second test, and that's becoming more and more challenging as we go along. Everybody's got the same formula, everybody is looking for those hooks, right? We are not any more clever than the other guy, who's also trying the same tricks. So it's a race to get that 2 seconds more.
Jennifer, I think we lost your audio.
No, I was just saying, sorry, I love what Amit and Sylvia said there about ultimately it comes down to engagement, I think, as a measure of quality, right? Are people willing to engage more with that content that you're creating or the assets? But I think, Amit, what you said sparked something for me. It's surprise, right? Because AI is that sort of great leveler. When I come across a piece of marketing or, copy that my team has created or design that surprises me, that stops me, I'm like, wow, I think you can see the human creative spark. And I think that's what I'm looking for more and more, because AI has created almost in some places a sea of sameness, especially with content and creative. So that spark of surprise, I think, is also a good measure of quality. And as Sylvia said, it's very hard because it's very hard to put a KPI on how many times did I surprise people or how many times did they get the inside joke. But that's where, again, I think the human element comes into it.
Yeah, so I think the creative element, surprise element, scroll stopping, right, to then drive engagement, and the second vector is personalization. So let's just drill into that a little bit more, right? So if you think about your audience, like, we've used the term buyer. There is no one uniform buyer. There's, 8 to 10 members of buying committee in your buying committee, according to Gartner. Then you not only have your external buyers, but you also have your internal constituents, sales and customer success, as marketing becomes a lot more strategic and has a lot more surface area beyond just leads and pipeline. So there are lots of audiences to market to. How have you thought about operationalizing that personalization and that? I mean, the creativity can't really be automated, but the personalization part to every single micro audience in every vertical, in every category, in every region. Like if you think about a campaign, you're going to produce 10 different assets for 5 different channels, for 5 different audience types, in 2 different verticals, in 3 different regions. That's like hundreds of assets. And you can't do that with one prompt at a time, right? So just curious as to how you've thought of this micro personalization and just automation of that.
I would say I think it comes down to everyone knows, right? It's only AI is only as good as what you put in, whether it's the prompt or whether it's the data. So I think also as well, one of the things that we've spent a lot of time trying to do, and we haven't perfected it by far, is how do we bring those different pieces of disparate data together to sort of build a bit of a layered approach, right? Building the disparate pieces of data together, then building the AI on top of it, and then also using tools that allow you to do things like the localization, right? So localization of imagery, as an example. When we run campaigns, we're running them in 70 or 80 countries in multiple different languages, all simultaneously, going out at the same time. And every single image has to be personalized. Every single image, it's not just translating, but it's, does that image fit the country that we're running in? Is there a seasonal moment? Even as simple things of using the AI to catch things like, we were building a campaign out of the North America team that we wanted to be a global campaign, and we were going to call it Summer Vibes. Well, it was like, hang on, you're about to run that in APAC, and in Australia, it ain't summer. So like even just small things then of bringing all the data into one place, having the AI layer, and then building out those tests and queries on top of it to be able to say, okay, now query all the data and say, where are we going to apply this campaign? Here are the assets we've created. Has everything that we've built, does it now sort of, follow the right rules, if you will? And AI can help you do that at scale. And that seems like an obvious use case that you should automatically know. But when you're trying to like run fast with everything, sometimes, the little nuances of data you miss. So that was just one example from something we did.
Yeah.
But to your point, sorry, Sylvia, please
No, go ahead.
All right. So, to be honest, this is an area that I've really not found an answer to. What I would love to do is to pick company level, individual level insights from my CRM, combine that with external world insights about that sector or the company or the individual, combine all of this together, create a landing page, run very targeted campaigns based on that, so that, and that's not happened, right? I mean, whatever personalization we try, there is at least 40-50% of human element that is still required, because maybe the landing page gets messed up, or maybe the LLM chain that we have created, the workflow, kind of messes up at some stage of this analysis. But what I would love to do is get real-time insights from Salesforce or from CRM, which is our proprietary knowledge, bring in the external world context about this particular company and what their aspirations are, put all of this together, brand it for that individual, maybe create an email copy out of this, maybe create a landing page out of this, right? I'd love to do that. The other restriction has always been the channels that we use for campaigning. They all have a minimum audience size, right? So even if I can get my content to a personalization at a level of 1, my ability to deliver it to that individual is restricted because of how some of these media platforms perform. So if anybody has solved this, it's like a holy grail for me.
Yeah, we haven't solved that either, but yeah, I think that's a perfect segue. My thought around this is I think we're moving from really broad segmentation on one side of the spectrum to like one-to-one automated personalization on the other. And I think everyone's somewhere in between right now. I've yet to meet someone who's on the like one-to-one side of the spectrum there. We did do an exercise around this recently that was around email writing. And it's like we did this brainstorm. It was the first part of the brainstorm was like, okay, what are the data points that will indicate to us that there's actually a unique story to tell for example. If they're based in like one state versus the other, or if they're at like, a 10,000 person company versus 8,000, like, okay, does that really change the story? And in a lot of cases we were like, strike that from the list. It doesn't really make a difference. And so we pulled out some more non-intuitive levers that actually did change the story dramatically. But we still had a list of these levers. So I think the first question was like, what actually changes the story dramatically? And then we had a list. And then instead of taking that list of things and slicing up our audience, we were like, can we just feed all of these into an LLM and have them write a personalized one-to-one message to this person that brings together all of those levers into one complete story? So we're really early in this. I think, again, this is the direction we're going. Some channels like email are going to be easier than channels like paid advertising. Probably will be a while till we get there. But I think I think we'll keep moving closer and closer in that direction, where you can create a one-to-one personalization using the inputs that actually change the story and make something unique. But I think we're still somewhere on that path.
Yeah, so Sylvia, we use a tool called clay.com. I don't know if you use
We
similar
use
tool
it too.
for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's still a lot to be desired there. So I'm hoping to get something which is easier to use and better. But yeah, in the same direction as what you said.
Yeah, and we at Widows, we're not doing one-to-one, but one-to-few, and essentially just making sure that the content that is generated is buyer aware or audience aware, and that allow marketing teams to actually activate buyers and different kind of audiences, and activate that reach in an operationalized way. So I think that is the other thing, right? Which is, let's go to custom GPTs for a moment, right? So the world started with ChatGPTs. We went to custom GPTs. The reason why we went to custom GPTs is, well, you can add some knowledge, you can add some brand voice, and you can save it and so forth. What is your experience with custom GPTs? If you have tried those, how do you manage them? How do you make that available to different team members? Some of them describe them as teammates. I don't know if they're teammates. They're really just prompt on a knowledge base. But how do you expire them? How do you share that? How do you change the knowledge? How do you manage those GPTs? How do you turn them into real sort of teammates?
Yeah, we've done a handful of hackathons where the end result of the hackathon has been building a custom GPT that then we share with the team. And so that's been really useful. So we did one recently around just like content inspiration. And the way we built it was we were like, what's a really raw, interesting context source of data that we could use for this? So we split up into groups, and we had one team focus on like, what's the knowledge base for this? And then we had another team focus on the taste, like what's the voice and the style, and like, the tastemakers, like what does good look like in terms of what's output here? And so those were kind of the two groups. And then we had a third group that was more operational, that was like, how do we make this repeatable and plug into our workflows and things like that? So the first group that was working on the knowledge base identified, we have this Slack channel internally where our sales reps ask our technical SEs really specific questions that customers are asking, and then the SEs answer those questions. And so we're like, okay, this is a great source of data because these are real questions that people are asking. And so we know whatever we write based on this source of data is at least going to be relevant to what's being asked, right? And so that's what that group came up with. And then in terms of the tastemaker, what does good look like group, their goal was to find samples of content that was really good. Because I find LLMs do a good job of pattern matching. So if you're trying to do like voice and tone and stylistic things, the best method we've found is to give it something that is an example of what good looks like, and then it can emulate that example and pattern match against that example. And then the third group ops, they were just kind of constructing the like, how does this work? How do we share it with people? How do we plug it into our workflows, et cetera? And so that combination of those three groups, I think, are kind of what allowed us to create some custom GPTs that are really helpful. But I have tons of custom GPTs. I have a bunch just even in my personal life where I've like imported like a bunch of content that I've written so then it can write like me. I've imported all of my personal goals so that I can ask it questions, So there's a bunch of really cool use cases for custom GPTs. And I think we all have at work, our enterprise ChatGPT accounts. And so then we can create that custom GPT and share it with people. So it's definitely been a great kind of like lightweight tool for us when we want to bring a knowledge base together, but it's not necessarily like the main hub. It's just more experimental and lightweight. So it's been a really useful tool for us for sure.
I have a contrarian view on this. Custom GPTs made a lot of sense when we were on ChatGPT 3.0, 3.5, right? But I think the way the LLMs are moving, if you use a particular login for a while, and we do have shared logins across relevant teams and clusters, and because you used it for a while, you uploaded so much content. I think that particular login tends to start mimicking and utilizing all of that content, right? So we tried this out. We ran A/B tests. We created certain so-called custom GPTs with relevant assets uploaded and all the prompts given there, and we just use other tools which were, let's say, 6 odd months, had rubber-headed the road for at least a 6 odd months, and the output was not drastically different, right? So for example, the login ID that I use, I get some initial output and I say, hey, no, write it like me, right? Exactly like you said. And it exactly knows because it's seen so much of my content. And I've kept the toggle on that, go ahead, knock yourself out, take all my content, feed into your model, do whatever you want with it. So I'm not keeping the privacy thing on. And my entire uh, user ID is now like a massive custom GPT, right? Which has all kinds of content flowing into it. So I stopped making custom GPTs. We made that in the initial period, and now we just said that the LLM itself is so super powerful that you don't need to do any of these.
Yeah, we've used some. I think it's a good point that Amit makes. I think, like Sylvia said, I think they're really good to help in that upfront part as well. We've also created some custom GPTs for things like pipeline, right? So when the teams are having to make rapid decisions, as an example, about okay, well, I want to increase a target, or I've got a new money that's come in and I can now deploy it in a different way. Having a custom GPT that has all of our private data in there, that has the marketing model assumptions, that has the historical QBR data, that has the forecasting data, etc. That's been quite helpful. And then I think as well, even going to custom GPTs when we're doing things like board of directors meeting and we're looking at our FY25 plan, and having again helping people answer questions, but prompting and instructing the GPT to answer in a certain way that is in line with potentially our sort of how we want to strategically align everything, right? And so again, it helps to be that thought partner, but it gives the thinking the framework is the best way that I think I can describe it, right? Versus it being open thinking or whatever the internet might think. It's how we would like the answers or the GPT to think.
We've got 2 more minutes. So here's the last sort of lightning round question. So there are a lot of CMOs that are AI curious. They're just starting on their AI journey. What would be your advice? What is the biggest mindset shift that these AI curious CMOs need to make in order to start their AI journey and be successful on them?
I would say using AI to use AI, which is like you ask it how to do things.
Very meta.
I think you just have to use it yourself. I've seen too many people try to be like, we're going to go deploy an AI program. And it's like, okay, well, have you built an AI assistant? Have you built a personalized GPT? Have you used AI? I remember at the very, very beginning of AI, I tried to create it was, just trying to create a visual to say congratulations on your promotion to those who've been promoted in the team. It took me 21 prompts because it kept spelling congratulations wrong, and then promotion wrong, and then 2025 wrong, and then it would make it like a college graduation. And so, having that experience myself let me at the time, live and breathe it and feel it, and then feel the pain of my team. So I think that's really important as a leader. You got to be in there with it, and you got to be making the mistakes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be shy, go ahead and try. Nobody's watching, nobody's judging. So irrespective of what your background is, I'm not a techie or a coder by background, right? And I always felt that that's one thing I never really picked on. But now with Cloud Artifact, you can do vibe coding and you can create stuff. And after the US tariffs were launched, we created an app like in 6 hours flat, right? And I did that. I mean, I'm not a techie, right? But I was very proud of the outcome. And I took somebody's help to then post it on my website. But yeah, it's just about go ahead and knock yourself out, and there's nobody judging you, so go ahead and try.
Amit, Jennifer, and Sylvia, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your wonderful insights. It was very awesome to have you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Absolutely pleasure. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye bye.
Cheers.